This lecture is entitled The Vibration of Enlightenment. And this is an expression which was used last summer by Sri Vasudevananda Saraswati, who guides the school. So over the last year or so, I've been investigating this to see if I could discover in practice what this is speaking about. And the first thing that came to mind was the word nāda. This, if you look it up in the dictionary, is a loud sound, a roaring, any sound or tone. Any sound or tone. So if you hear anything now, anything will be the nāda. There are no such things as distractions because it's all the nāda. Sri Shantananda Saraswati, who previously guided the school, said that the nāda is of two types. One is the nāda of the outer world. The other is that which can be heard within. Now, this is intriguing. And it would be interesting to discover if we can hear this nāda within. So I thought we would try an experiment just to see if we can hear the nāda within. He gives another clue, just to help you a little bit with this. He says, in tracing the sounds from coarse to subtle, one reaches the ultimate point, which is the nāda. So let's try this. We're going to hear a natural sound, first of all, through the sound system, and just see if something of this nāda can be discovered. You can close your eyes if you wish. Keep listening, because the nāda is any sound, whatever you can hear in the environment. And trace these sounds from coarse to subtle. Good. Well, let's have a look at that quotation from Sri Shantananda Saraswati. In tracing these sounds from coarse to subtle, one reaches the ultimate point, which is the nāda. And nāda itself is the aham, the true I. This is terribly simple. It is just the awareness of yourself. So we're going to try another sound now, this time a man-made sound, if you like, humanly made sound. And we will, again, see if we can trace the sounds from coarse to subtle and reach that ultimate point, which is the nāda, which is the aham. The aham is the true I. And keep listening. Tracing these sounds from coarse to subtle, whatever they are. Good. Well, this nāda, which is going on all the time, it's there 24/7, which is the aham, which is the I, which is the simple awareness of yourself, is also in its purity Om. Sri Shantananda Saraswati tells us that nāda, aham, and Om in their purity are the same, identical. And we can connect with that aham, we can connect with that nāda, we can connect with that Om right now or at any time. Of course, Om gives rise to this creation. It gives rise to the appearance of this creation, and it does so in a scientific manner according to the system. 3 constituents. A is the sattva, goodness, the beingness, literally. Sattva is beingness, literally. Sat is the being, the twa is the ness. The U is rajas, activity, which gets things going. And the is the tamas, inertia, giving things a form. In order for anything to exist in this creation, that chair, for example, in order for it to exist, there have to be these 3. The sattva, the beingness or goodness, the rajas, activity, and the tamas, the inertia, which holds the shape. And in this way, this whole creation exists, even your thoughts, even your feelings. Everything exists by virtue of this Om, which is sounding all the time. It is the nāda, and it is the aham, it is yourself. But the system within the Sanskrit literature elaborates this a little more, very helpfully. Because all speech, all sound, all manifestation, therefore, starts in para, beyond. It starts beyond. And as this lecture is proceeding, just be aware of this. Be aware of that realm beyond. And watch what is entering the heart. This is pashyanti, it means seeing. This is the level of intuition. This is the matrix of the individual, as he later describes it. So the sound from para enters the heart at pashyanti. Then it enters what's called madhyama. Madhyama means the middle realm. It's middle in between pashyanti and vaikari here. It's between the seeing level, the causal level, and the uttered speech, the physical. And in this level, the madhyama, we get language appearing. A subtle form of language is there at pashyanti, the language of the heart, if you like. But then in madhyama, it takes on form, grammar, particular sounds, depending upon the language we're using. and then it comes off the tongue at Vaikari, physically uttered sound. This applies to human speech, but it also applies to the speech of that absolute being. And the speech of that absolute being is the Om. And that is speaking itself into existence through all the appearances of this universe. Causal, subtle, and physical. But the magic of the Sanskrit system is that knowledge of these four levels of sound or speech gives us a way to rediscover the para, to rediscover what is beyond the appearances. Because what's beyond those appearances, what we really are, is Sat, Chit, and Ananda, being, consciousness, and bliss. But let's face it, we might not always experience that. I don't know about you. But when we get up in the morning, do we always experience being, consciousness, and bliss? Not necessarily. So we need a little help with this, perhaps. And the Sanskrit system does give us this help through the language of Sanskrita in particular. Because if we introduce the sentences of the Upanishads initially at Vaikari, and then take them back to para, there is a system for realization of that bliss of the self through language. So, we take first of all a sentence such as Tat Tvam Asi. That you are that. We introduce it into Vaikari. You have to introduce it into Vaikari first because someone's got to tell you that sentence. Someone's got to teach you that sentence. It helps if we understand the Sanskrit grammar a little, some of the etymology of the words, and this is really now moving into Madhyama because we start to use our mental faculties to analyze this statement, Tat Tvam Asi. We might look at commentators. And the internal movements of the mind are brought under that statement of truth, Tat Tvam Asi. We can repeat it in mind. We can begin to live that sentence. And this is where it starts getting deeper into Pashyanti, into the seeing level, into the heart. This, Sri Shantananda Saraswati tells us, is the creative level, the matrix of the individual. This is where, if you like, the individual world, the heart of the individual world exists. Everybody here thinks of themselves as an individual. That's because at Pashyanti, we each have a unique matrix, a unique set of experiences which we attribute to this individual. And this is part of nature, it seems. It's the matrix of the individual, but also the creative level. By connecting with our heart, we can become creative. Whatever we have to offer will be coming from the heart. And this is why purity of heart is so important. Purification of Vaikari through proper pronunciation of language, through good living, purification of Madhyama through proper mental training, clarification of the mind, and clarification of the heart. This is the very nature of spiritual discipline. And with clarity at those levels, we can then remember our true nature, which is Sat, Chit, Ananda, being, consciousness, and bliss. So this is the system. Okay, perhaps you're still not convinced. Vibrating, enlightenment? Not sure if those two match. Well, there is a whole school of thought within the Sanskrit system that does propound this philosophy. That actually action is part of the nature of the absolute. And these two, the knowledge and the action, go together. And indeed, one can discover the knowledge, the true being, in the midst of action. In fact, one needs to discover it in the midst of action. That's where you're going to discover it, according to this. Here is a famous image of Shiva. Nataraj, as it's called, the Lord of the dance. Because, of course, this dance of creation is taking place all the time. It's taking place in this hall. The dance is the Shakti, the play of powers. And the Shakti are held in the Shiva, that in which all things rest, literally, is the etymology of that. From Shi, to rest or lie. Shiva is that in which all things rest. And be aware of that Shiva now. And immediately one observes the Shakti, the powers held by Shiva. So the body of Shiva is in motion. Arms, legs moving, but look at the face. Absolute stillness. Vibration and enlightenment simultaneously. Two other words within this particular philosophical view are prakasha, the light, and vimarsha, its reflection. Consciousness and its representation. So here, in this hall, there is consciousness, but it's represented as individuals, as chairs, as computers, etc. There's general awareness, but there's also the specific awareness which each of us seem to have as individuals, the self-awareness. Prakasha, the general light, vimarsha, its reflection. And this philosophy says they are the same. There is no difference between the prakasha, the light, and the vimarsha, its reflection. It's like the moon. Have a look at that moon. What are you seeing, in fact? Are you seeing the light of the moon? Or are you seeing the light of the sun reflected? This is the question. And in the school of philosophy and economic science, we have known about this for many decades. Because the school started with economics, if you like, dealing with the vibration of worldly existence. But what are the principles upon which that vibration is taking place? The founder of the school found it necessary to return to philosophy, to the Enlightenment. We also had, for example, art in action. The action was very evident. I was volunteering for decades at this particular festival. There were thousands of people coming. There was plenty of action. And I actually used to, during this event, I would reflect upon statements from the Upanishads. And it was as if the whole event was taking place within the Enlightenment. So there's the art of enlightenment, if you like, and the action. art in action. And even last Thursday, actually, I was volunteering in the kitchen at Mandeville Place. And they gave me one of these pennies, and it said, philosophy in action. And I thought, yes, that's the same thing. And this has always been a tradition in the school that the philosophy shows itself in action. It has to show itself in the action itself. And this is the evidence of proper meditation. It's the evidence of proper philosophy, that it shows itself in precise, efficient action. Buddha also, I would contest, knew about this. There he is, sitting underneath the tree, about to be enlightened. And the demon Mara tried all sorts of things to distract him from his meditation. I'm sure you remember the story. Sent his daughters in. He then taunted Buddha and said, "You don't deserve to be enlightened. You're just sitting there doing nothing. How dare you claim to be enlightened when you're sitting there doing nothing useful at all?" And at this point, Buddha simply touched the earth and asked the earth to witness that he had been through many, many lifetimes practicing various virtues, practicing spiritual disciplines in the form of animals, in the form of human beings. I'm sure you know the stories from the Pali Canon. Through many, many lifetimes, he had been perfecting spiritual discipline, and the earth had witnessed all those lifetimes. And in the face of the practice that Buddha had been through, Mara could do nothing to resist the Enlightenment. We also have this in the perfect prayer. That is infinite. That ultimate being is infinite, but this, its reflection, is also infinite. There's no difference between the two. Well, I wondered a bit about this, and I thought, how, practically, does this vibration of enlightenment show itself? And I was reminded of this word, siddhi, which means accomplishment, spiritual accomplishment normally. And when we first came across this in the philosophy school through Sri Shantananda Saraswati in the 1980s, he really warned against the cultivation of siddhi, because there are dangers in cultivating these siddhi, because if you claim it, it could turn poisonous. But then, in the early 90s, he started to speak about siddhi as realization of the self. He said, through disciplined life, comes siddhi, mastery, or independence. The discipline, completed with conscious effort, becomes natural. And this is called siddhi, realization of the self. So my ears perked up a little bit when I heard this. He's actually saying that siddhi is the realization of the self. And he's also speaking of it as mastery or independence. And I started to look into this. And I began to realize that what he's speaking about here is the 7th and 8th of the 8 siddhis. So let's have a look at these 8 siddhis, because they can be understood in different ways. You see, traditionally, we start with anima, becoming atomic in size, or mahima, becoming infinite in size. And I began to wonder whether really this was speaking about subtlety. And on the spiritual path, one develops this subtlety. One can also develop mahima, greatness of heart, magnanimity. And of course, within the tradition, the character who exemplifies these siddhi, who possessed and developed all these siddhi, is Hanuman. He could make his body very, very small. He could make his body very, very large. And here he is, holding a mountain. So if he's got a mountain in his hand, guess how large his body must be. And furthermore, I don't know if you've noticed, on his shoulder, there's Rama. So he's pretty big. And in his tail is contained the whole of Rama's army. Remember the story that it was Hanuman who was asked by Rama to try to find Sita. Sita represents the peace of ourself. So it's Hanuman who manages to discover the peace of ourself. Well, how does he do this? He does this through the siddhi, because there they are. They discover that they come to the south of India. They're looking over the ocean. They know that Sita is in Lanka, the island off the southern coast of India. But of course, how are they going to get there? Now, at the time, interestingly, Hanuman says, well, I'm not sure I could make that jump. And there's a bear called Jambawan who says, Hanuman, you have special powers. Use them. Realize them. And it's as if he's speaking to us. We all have potentially special powers. We need to use them. You can jump across the ocean. You can make your body as light as a feather. Go, Hanuman, fly through the air. Go and find Sita. Well, off he flies, making his body light as a feather. Like a bird, he flies through the air. But of course, the gods want to test him. And they send a demoness called Surasa. And Surasa confronts Hanuman in the sky. And she takes a vow that she has to swallow Hanuman to stop his progress. So she opens her mouth as Hanuman is flying towards her. "Aha," said Hanuman. "I'm not going to be stopped by Surasa. I will make my body bigger and bigger to avoid being swallowed." But of course, Surasa made her mouth bigger and bigger in order to swallow Hanuman. And this went on for quite a while until Surasa's mouth was thousands of kilometers wide. And suddenly, Hanuman made his body as small as a fly, flew into the mouth of Surasa and out of her ear. Well, Surasa respected Hanuman for this, and off he went, flying onwards. So he could make his body lighter than air. This is the laghima. I wondered what this meant in practical terms for us. But of course, it's lightness. There are sometimes we need gravity, sometimes we need lightness. We need to balance this. And Hanuman had the ability to be detached, to be light, to fly through the air, but also he had the ability to be very heavy. And there's one story about this which I've discovered in the Mahabharata, which is very interesting. You see, once Bhima, who was one of the 5 husbands of Draupadi, he was in the forest with Draupadi, and a flower, a beautiful flower, flew through the air. And it was so beautiful that Draupadi said, "Oh, Bhima, that's such a beautiful flower. I'd love to have some more of those flowers. Could you please fetch some more flowers?" "Well, of course," said Bhima. "I can easily do that. I'm very, very strong. I have the strength of 100 elephants. That's no problem getting a flower. I will go off on the forest path and I will fetch more flowers from you. They must have blown from that direction. So off he went. But as he went along the path, he found an old monkey in his way, and the tail of the old monkey was there blocking his way. "Oh," said Bhima, "it would be bad manners to jump over the tail. So I will ask the monkey to move out of the way. It's just an old monkey." "Old monkey, will you please move out of the way? I need to get along this path to find some flowers for Draupadi." The old monkey looked at him. "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I'm Bhima. I'm one of the strongest people on this earth. Please move your tail." "No," said the monkey, "I will not move my tail." "Oh, you will have to move my tail if you want it moved." "Oh, all right," said Bhima. "That's no problem. I can easily do that. Remember, I have the strength of 100 elephants." And he scooped up the tail and realized he could not move it. Because this was Hanuman, reappearing in the Mahabharata many, many thousands of years later, and he had made his tail very, very heavy. So, this is another siddhi, the ability to become very heavy or very light, to operate with gravity or with lightness. Prapti and prakamya, these siddhis seem to operate in pairs. Prapti is initiative, the ability to attain something. And those on the path, the spiritual path, can get things done. The ability to become what one desires, determination. Of course, Hanuman exemplified this when there was a terrible situation because millions and millions of these monkeys who had been wounded in the battle against the demons were lying there, sprawled across the battlefield. And even Lakshmana himself, the brother of Rama, was badly wounded. And they said to Hanuman, "We need some herbs from the Himalayas. We need them urgently, Hanuman." "That's no problem," said Hanuman. "I will fly off and I will get them." Now, you would have thought he would have perhaps picked up a few herbs and brought them back, but no. The problem was Hanuman didn't quite know which herbs to bring, and he thought he needed a lot of them, so he thought, let's bring the whole mountain. He scooped up the mountain and brought the mountain back through the air, back to Lanka. We saw that picture before, and here he is now offering the herbs to Rama and Lakshmana, and the physicians got to work and cured the wounds, both of Rama and Lakshmana and all the monkeys. And in this way, the monkey army overcame the demons. Finally, these are the two which are mentioned by Sri Shantananda Saraswati. Ishitva, supremacy or independence. Hanuman showed great independence. And Vashitva, self-mastery. He was a master of himself, and we too, on the spiritual path, may find that this independence, true independence, not being dependent upon anything else, and this self-mastery emerge. One famous story illustrated here is when Hanuman finally has recovered Sita, brought Sita back, and they're back in Ayodhya, the capital city. Sita realizes that Hanuman really is the reason why they're back there. And she says, "Hanuman, I wish to thank you. I'm going to give you my most precious possession, Hanuman." And she takes off her pearl necklace and gives it to Hanuman. You can see Hanuman wearing the pearl necklace there. But Hanuman's response is quite interesting. He starts to bite the pearls, and he bites them open, looks at them quizzically and says, I'm sorry, Sita, but these pearls are worthless because I cannot see Rama in them. Huh, said Sita, what do you mean you can't see Rama in the pearls? You're not going to see Rama everywhere. I mean, he's not in your chest, for example. Oh, he is in my heart, said Hanuman, and he pulls open his chest and there reveals not only Rama, but also Sita in his heart. Now, Rama represents the true self, the Paramatman. So the message is that we too should hold the Paramatman in our heart. But notice Sita is there too. The vibration and the enlightenment are there within the heart. There is no difference between the two. This is the Shiva and the Shakti, present in every moment. And we too can remember our true self. We too can remember that Paramatman, be devoted to that Paramatman, and all the siddhi, all the accomplishments which may come up, are devoted and in service to that Paramatman. And this is the case with Hanuman. He was a true devotee of Rama and Rama alone. One final warning that Sri Shantananda Saraswati gave us is that ahankara, the egoism of siddhi, the claim on siddhi, the claim on these powers, is very dangerous. One needs to rescue oneself from this so that it can become natural. Natural discipline generates a special kind of bliss. And what he's saying is that the natural discipline is to realize, to remember that you are Sat, being, Chit, consciousness, and Ananda, bliss. This is the natural discipline. Thank you.